Where has such a personality as Srinivas Acharya gone?
My Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami. Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen?
Where are my Raghunatha Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishna Das Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go?
I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, hero of all wonderful qualities?
Being unable to attain association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps.
So we see here the mood of Srila Narottam Das Thakur in separation. Quite desperate time for him. So many personalities left this world just as he was kind of rising in his own devotional service and bhakti development and longing for their association, so we could very easily add Srila Prabhupada to this list. Where has Srila Prabhupada gone? And now we see also so many disciples of Srila Prabhupada also departing from this world. Where have all these wonderful personalities gone? And simply weeping in separation. So this disappearance day is very much about this mood. So I'll try to sing. I was going to ask Hare Pran Prabhu to do it, but his hands are full with Sandesh. He's got his hand in the butter pot in the month of Damodar. So I can sing, and you can play Mridanga Prabhu. Yeah, no problem.
Can we get the taller mic stand, please?
Jayanilo Premadana Karuna Pracho Jayanilo Premadana Karuna Pracho Heno Prabhu Kota Gela Jaya Thakur. Kamora Svaruprupa Kahadasa Raghunatha Patita Pavan. Kahamora Eka kale kota gela goranatara. Pashane guti bomata nale pashibo Goranga gunera nidhi kota gele pabo Goranga Se sabha sangira sange Jai koilo bilas Se sanga na paya kande narotamadas Jaya Nilo Premadhana Karuna Prachoy Jaya Nilo Premadhana Karuna Prachoy Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ganatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitangena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Gena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Uta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Zajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. So today is the Tirubhav anniversary of Srila Prabhupada's departure from this world and from the vision of those personalities who were present when Prabhupada was here. Looking around the room, seems for many of us, we weren't here when Srila Prabhupada was here, so I would first like to seek blessings from those senior Vaishnavas. To be honest, I'm not sure why I'm sitting here and you're not, but somehow I got asked to do it. And I said, how come there are no... They said, so if you'd like to speak something, then, happy for you to speak. Please forgive me if I've committed any offense by sitting here on this raised platform in front of such senior Vaishnavas. I will try to speak something on the glorification of Srila Prabhupada and leave some time at the end also for reflections and sharing from such senior devotees. So just wanted to express both, congratulations to you who were here, to be present when Prabhupada was on the planet and to walk at the same time nearby when this great soul was here, and to also express my gratitude for all the service that you've continued to do for many years following the instruction of your spiritual masters. So most blessed and fortunate souls. I wanted to start with a video of Srila Prabhupada speaking. So let me see if I can get out of this and still be sharing. Here we go. So, looks like I'll need to change this over. Okay. I did ask the devotee earlier to set that up. He's got the remote, I think, or it's somewhere around. I can't see where it is. Okay, let me just try it, see if it happens here.
Following the class on disappearance day of His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, given by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, recorded on December 9th, 1968, in Los Angeles.
So I was watching that and I just thought it would be nice to share how Srila Prabhupada explains on the disappearance day of his own spiritual master, how there is no difference between appearance and disappearance for a sadhu, for a saintly person. And we heard the different examples. He said, for the prince, better you keep on living. Enjoy now because you're going to exhaust all of your pious credits and suffer at the end of this life. For the brahmachari, better you go ahead and die now because your life's perfect. Don't stick around in case something happens. Better you go ahead and go because everything's good for you now. And for the butcher, better you don't live or you don't die. Because living is horrible because you're slaughtering animals, doing so many horrendous things every day. And if you die, then you're going to have to suffer all the reactions. So Prabhupada says, only for the sadhu. Only for the sadhu. Either you live or you die. There's no difference. Because while you're alive, you're just remembering Krishna, thinking of Krishna, doing devotional service. And when you die, you'll be doing the same thing. So there's no difference. So Srila Prabhupada makes it very clear that for a sadhu, there is no difference between the being alive, the appearance, or the disappearance. So like that. So this is how we can remember and understand this. Although, of course, you could even hear at the beginning when Srila Prabhupada said, so today is the divine disappearance day of my spiritual master. And if you were listening closely, he went, and you could hear he was also feeling that separation and that choked upness. So, just wanted to put things into a little bit of a perspective here for Srila Prabhupada. Of course, as I was preparing this presentation, was thinking how blessed I am that Srila Prabhupada came into my life. How blessed I am to have come in contact with Srila Prabhupada's books and the devotees of Srila Prabhupada. Because otherwise, I wouldn't even know what this picture is. You know, it's like, what is it? I remember I had a copy of the Krishna book that I got from Sankirtan devotees. And I had many of Srila Prabhupada's books, but I found it really hard to read them. But I loved the pictures. And I used to look at the pictures regularly. And the front of Krishna book, the one that I had was the picture of the Ashtasakis, Krishna with the Ashtasakis. And I used to look at that and think, this is so beautiful. I have no idea what it is, who it is. You know, I couldn't even read the top. The title was KRSNA. Too many, consonants without any vowels. I was like, maybe they misspelled it. I don't know. And I don't know why they got dots under those letters either. But anyway, Krishna is like interesting. This is cool. But, so without Prabhupada, so many of us would be so lost. And we see even, as I see many devotees here from Indian background, we see even people from India. They might know, or they might say, I am knowing. How many people I've met on Sankirtan? I am knowing Krishna. But we realize they don't know very much about Krishna even. They just, they know, yes, they know Bhagavad Gita exists, but are they really reading Bhagavad Gita? Have they understood Sarva Dharmam Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja? Like that. So here we see that this is where it all started. This is Goloka Vrindavan, the spiritual world, maybe an aspiration for some, if not all of us, and a gift given to us by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He came to deliver the golden ticket. On behalf of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, He gave this ticket. So we know that the Goloka Vrindavan is situated in the spiritual world, in the Vaikuntha planets, where 75% of the creation is situated there in the spiritual world, and 25% is here, where we're at. And one devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, asked him about the material world, and he pointed at this picture, and he said down here at the bottom, you are here, like on a map, when you walk into the park, the entrance, it says, you are here. So we just have to remember that Unfortunately, that's where we are. And here we are in the material world where Karnadakshayi Vishnu has laid down, and this in the causal ocean, and from his pores are emanating so many different universes and he's an expansion of the original Swayam Bhagavan Krishna, not Swayam Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj, but Swayam Bhagavan Krishna. And he is emanating all these planets, and Mahavishnu is none other than Krishna himself in a specific form for a specific purpose. He is Narayan, Karnadakshayi Vishnu. And inside each of these planets, he enters as Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, lying on the Garbhodak ocean. And then Lord Brahma takes birth from his navel. And he finds himself alone in the darkness, Lord Brahma, sitting on top of this lotus, and he's wondering, and then he begins to wander. So he is both wandering and wondering. And then a voice says, Tapa. And he performs austerities. And from that, Krishna, we see here in the picture, reveals all transcendental wisdom to him through the Gayatri mantra, through the sound of his vamsi, from the sound of his venu, his flute. And he is impregnated with this Vedic knowledge through the medium of the Gayatri mantra. And he becomes enlightened, and he begins to create and engineer the entire universe as a secondary creator. And he's actually the head of our sampradaya. He is Lord Brahma. He is our, you could say he's our first founder acharya. He is our first teacher. And then once in a day of Lord Brahma, Krishna manifests and appears in his original Swarup form in the Dwarpa Yuga, and he performs his Bhoma Vrindavan Leela. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's described that at the end of the Dwarpa Yuga of the 28th Divya Yuga, Lord Krishna appears on the earth with the full paraphernalia of his eternal Braj Dham. And as we were hearing recently, his coming to this world was, he wanted to bring Srimati Radharani, and she was very conditional. I'm only coming if three things come as well. One is Braj Dham, the second is the Jamuna River, and the third is Giriraj Govardhan, which is manifested here. This is, by the way, is remarkable. Whoever put this together, kudos to them. This is really, really exceptional, incredible, so potent and powerful. I could sit and watch the lightning in the clouds for hours, It's just so special, very wonderful. Then, of course, we know another personality appeared initially to defeat the Mayavadis and the impersonalists, the Buddhists, Madhvacharya, introducing dualism, this perpetual two fingers. There is God and there is the Jiva. They are distinctly different. So like that, yeah. So, and he was paving the way for another personality. And who was that personality? That personality was Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then it's described in a purport, also in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Srila Prabhupada says, now in this term of Vaivaswata Manu, during which Lord Chaitanya appears first, Lord Krishna appears at the close of Dwarpa Yuga, at the 28th Divya Yuga, and then Lord Chaitanya appears in the Kali Yuga of the same Divya Yuga. So there's an astrological time clock that we've taken birth in, and this is the time frame in which things are manifesting. So when this personality, Lord Chaitanya, manifests in Kali Yuga, he benedicts the entire universe. He's a special Lord Chaitanya that appears in a day of Lord Brahma. Not just any Lord Chaitanya. Every cycle, a Lord Chaitanya manifests. But this cycle is non-different from Krishna himself personally. He is Krishna in the mood of Srimati Radharani, and he comes specifically to deliver prema bhakti freely to everyone. His disciples, direct disciples, the 6 Goswamis, studied directly under Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They wrote books. They're all manjaris in Goloka Vrindavan. They've also come to assist Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they wrote books and established temples, opened up the holy tirthas for all of us. And specifically, we're followers of Srila Rupa Goswami, known as Rupanugas, followers of Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, like that. And then we know that there's a 7th Goswami who also came and appeared, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who came and he also was writing proficiently. He established where Lord Chaitanya appeared. Yogapeeth, thank you. He established the Yogapeeth with the help of Jagannath Das Babaji, and wrote so many books, sent his books to the West, also made the prediction, as Lord Nityananda did, that in the future a massive temple would rise in the fields, from the rice fields. And when we look, we see that temple is risen. That temple is now risen. His son, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, considered a ray of Vishnu, known as the Simha Guru. He appeared, such an auspicious appearance. Just after he appeared, not long, the Jagannath cart came. Bhaktivinoda Thakur offered him on the cart, and the garland fell from Lord Jagannath, blessing him. Such an exalted personality. And he instructed so many disciples. Actually, for many years I was thinking he only instructed Prabhupada, but he didn't. He instructed so many of his disciples to preach, and preach in the West in the English language. He gave this message to Srila Prabhupada in 1922. When he first came to visit, Prabhupada said, "I have met a very saintly person." And he expressed that he accepted initiation in his heart at that moment that he met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur at Bhaktivinoda Asan at Altadunga Junction, which we now, how many have been there since it's reopened? Yes, beautiful, now in the possession of ISKCON. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur initiating Srila Prabhupada as Abhay Charanaravinda, and initiating him in 1933, 11 years. Interesting point, oftentimes when I served as temple president in London, one of the biggest questions I got from devotees is, when will I get my initiation? As if it's like, anyway. And it's like, well, there's a process. And they're like, yes, but I want now. And I'm like, do you realize Srila Prabhupada waited 11 years? The founder, Acharya, the divine personality sent from the spiritual world, he waited 11 years. It's okay to have a little bit of time in between, there doesn't need to be a rush here. So Srila Prabhupada waited 11 years to take initiation. A few statements from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur about this personality, whom was also known as, Srila Prabhupada was given a nickname by his sannyasi godbrothers. What was it? Anyone remembers? Abhay Babu. Abhay Babu. What does that mean? Means Abhay the businessman. They would go to Abhay, and they would preach to him like we go and preach to people who live outside. Yes, do kirtan. Some dakshin, please. Give some prasad. He would serve them. But Abhay Babu, he was just like kind of a businessman. Prabhupada was had his Prayag pharmacy. He was a drug dealer, as he would later say to Shyam Sundar Prabhu. Shyam Sundar said, "I have to go to jail for a little while, Prabhupada." "Oh, why is that?" "Well, I was selling drugs." And he said, "Oh, I was also a drug dealer," a drug salesman. So Srila Prabhupada in the business. So his godbrothers, sannyasis, would come and refer to him as Abhay Babu. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada said, "He'll do the needful when the time comes. Nobody requires to help him." And we see that Srila Prabhupada was perpetually requesting help. If you read through the letters from Srila Prabhupada, he was always writing, asking for help. long before he left India, he was asking for help, requesting his godbrothers to help him. Then he came to America on his own. Here, when he was in New York, so many times he wrote to his godbrothers, just send some money. There's a good field for activity here. We can start a Radha Krishna temple. Just send some money, some manpower. And what did they do? Nothing. They didn't send anything. They sent their blessings. And by those blessings, everything happened. Then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also said, one of my disciples will cross the ocean. And we see who that disciple was. Of course, he sent Ban Maharaj and others to London, and they did start a little center. They made one disciple. But when they returned, it's described that they were eating with knife and fork, like the English. And Bhaktisiddhanta was a bit disgusted. He's like, I sent you there to teach them, but you came back affected by their habits, so like that. So we see that actually this personality. And then a few weeks before Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati passed in December 1936, he wrote to Srila Prabhupada expressing his full confidence in Srila Prabhupada's ability to preach effectively in English to a Western audience. Of course, this is a big topic of discussion in ISKCON these days. How do we preach to the Western audience? Here you have a 70-year-old Bengali gentleman with a strong accent coming, dressed fully in Vaishnav clothing, including pointy slippers, and he was probably the most effective Western preacher so far. He was able to preach to the Western audience, and it wasn't limited to the Western. He preached to everybody, and everyone became attracted. So this was a direct and personal instruction and a confirmation of his faith in Prabhupada's future. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, you try to preach whatever you have learned from me to the English-knowing people in English. That will do good to you and to the people to whom you shall preach. That is my instruction. And Srila Prabhupada describes that he took up that instruction from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and he made it his life and soul. So many years, Srila Prabhupada, from 1936, 30 years he was in India trying to do something to follow that instruction. Well, actually, a little less than 30 years, like 29 years before he boarded the boat to come to the West. Trying so hard, 29 years. When you think about Srila Prabhupada's life, time is a little different. Often we're in a hurry. Of course, it doesn't mean we don't endeavor, but Krishna seems to take his own time. Sometimes things mature later. When Prabhupada was in the zeal of his youth, it would have been great if he had been here in America. It could have lasted for so long, but that wasn't to be. That wasn't the situation. Prabhupada came later, in his later years. There's one video I was watching yesterday of this interview with Srila Prabhupada on the news channel. I think it was in California. Black-bodied guy was interviewing him. And Prabhupada's just sitting there so majestically, And I was thinking, he was saying things like Prabhupada said, I can say, but you cannot say. Because I am an old man. They will listen to me. Like Lord Chaitanya took sannyas so that everyone would have to offer him at least obeisances. So Srila Prabhupada came in his mature age, and everyone would offer some respect, because he's an old man, He's an elderly man. So like this. And then, of course, we have these wonderful verses, Vailochan Das Thakur in his Chaitanya Mangala. Chanting the name and qualities of Krishna is the life and energy of the Vaishnavas. I will reveal these activities and rejuvenate pure devotional service unto myself. In this way, I will destroy all the sins in Kali Yuga. So all of you, my associates, go ahead and take birth on the earthly planet before my advent, and don't remain behind. Taking the sharp sword of the congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, I will root out and destroy the demoniac mentality in the hearts of the conditioned souls. So this is Krishna speaking when he's coming as Lord Chaitanya revealing this. Yadi papi chari dharma dura deshayai, mora sena pati bhakta yabi tatai. If some sinful people escape, and did some sinful people escape? A lot of sinful people escaped. Giving up religious principles, and if they go to far off countries, then my Senapati Bhakta will come at the time to give them Krishna consciousness. Senapati means a military field commander, and Bhakta is a devotee. So Lord Chaitanya will empower his own devotee to spread Krishna consciousness around the world. And who is that personality? It is so clearly Srila Prabhupada. No one else can stand. No one else can stand up to that, the order of what Srila Prabhupada has done for the whole of the world. Prabhupada said in the future, this ISKCON will be recognized as the movement that saved the world from its suicide course. And we can see that the entire planet is on a suicide course. And almost every way you interrogate or audit what's happening on the planet, it's like we're basically just, people are just destroying themselves. So Srila Prabhupada, he was so comfortable. Who here has been to Radha Damodar Temple, been in Srila Prabhupada's room? Yeah, just sitting there, you feel how powerful that place is. The hub of the spiritual world. Srila Prabhupada was sitting there. I mean, he didn't need to go anywhere. At the end of his life, I'm listening to the audiobook of Your Ever Well-Wisher, and I've come, interestingly enough, I've come to the end, his final pastimes, and coming into 1977, and Srila Prabhupada is saying, I want to go back to Vrindavan. He was in Rishikesh, and he said, if I'm going to leave, I want to leave in Vrindavan. And I was thinking, Prabhupada never had to leave Vrindavan. He never had to leave. He could have stayed there in a comfortable, wonderful situation, continued reading, writing, translating. He could have just done that. It probably would have been easy. Some of us may think sometimes, why isn't life a little easier? I just want a comfortable situation, and I want life to be easy. Prabhupada had it. He was in one of the topmost places on the planet. He could have just stayed there. But he didn't. He left that comfort. And he left that comfort with these books, feeling that he had full confidence. Now I'm ready to go to the West and fulfill the order of my spiritual master. And we could go for hours how hard Srila Prabhupada worked just to manifest these 3 books. Personally taking on so much hardship, doing it all himself. Sometimes I think, why have I got to do this? Isn't there someone else who could do it? Why do I have to do whatever? We may think like this. Prabhupada had to do it all himself to fill up a trunk with, how many was it? It was 100, I think, 100 copies of Srimad Bhagavatam that he came to the West with. Boarded the Jaladuta, and of course we know the intense, austere conditions. I was watching another video, Srila Prabhupada, and they were the video was, they were talking about Prabhupada, specifically his journey, but they were showing a different boat on the Atlantic, a big boat about the size of the Jaladuta, and how it was hitting these waves and then going down like that. And I was thinking, God, that must have been so intense, to be on that ship. Anyone here has ever been on a ship at sea? Yeah? And one of the pastimes, they were saying, Prabhupada sailed to America. I was thinking, he didn't sail. That sounds so nice. He sailed to America. You know, it was a hellish journey. And Prabhupada says that if the Atlantic had shown its true nature on that voyage, I certainly would have left my body. I mean, 2 heart attacks. People have a heart attack, they go to the hospital, they stay there for days, they come home, they don't do anything for a long time, and then they have to go back and forth, tests and this test and that test. Maybe even they have to have some stents implanted, maybe they have to have a pacemaker put in, maybe they have to have so many things done to them. It's years and years of recovery from a heart attack. And then you always live in fear that it could happen again. Srila Prabhupada had 2 heart attacks on the Jaladuta. And if you look at that diary, you see, whenever I think of that, I just remember that squiggly line, you know, where it seems Prabhupada started having one while he was writing in his journal. So like that. And then where did he arrive? Of course, he arrived in Boston, then he came to New York, then he went to Butler, Pennsylvania, and then eventually making his way to New York City. You know, he's an old Calcutta boy. He's living in Vrindavan, you know, never really seen snow. Came into, as far as I understand, it was one of the harshest winters ever in New York. And Srila Prabhupada came into that. And he didn't come with a big jacket. He didn't have anyone to buy him a big jacket and a big woolly hat. He basically had his few sets of simple cloth and this chadar. And this is what he had. That's all he had. So we know, anyway, the story, Srila Prabhupada and this little bongo drum that was gifted to him, sitting under Tompkins Square Park, or sitting under the tree in Tompkins Square Park, attracting the world. And I'm always amazed that it says Srila Prabhupada would chant for like 3 or 4 hours without stopping. And in one place, he gave an instruction to someone that when you chant Hare Krishna, you should chant in such a way that you can go on for hours. And then I always think of Madhav Prabhu, the way he chants. It's just... And you're like, we're going to be here for a little while. We're not going anywhere. We're just on the journey with the holy name and just tuned in. And of course, matchless gifts, which we all have access to now, to go to this beautiful and wonderful place where it all began and to sit where Srila Prabhupada planted that beej of bhakti, the bhakti lata beej, and how it's grown over the whole world. So actually, I have another 11 slides, but we're almost at time. 9 o'clock we finish usually, right? And I also wanted to leave some time for our senior devotees to please speak and share something, some reflection. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Jai Nitai Prabhu. Thank you for a wonderful presentation about Srila Prabhupada. Yes, in one sense, Avirbhava and Tirobhava are the same, appearance and disappearance. Prabhupada compares it to like the sun. The sun is always there, but when we see it, we say the sun is here, the sun has arisen. And then when the sun sets, oh. Yeah. But why? Because we like being in the sunshine. So the sun itself is not affected by our seeing it or not seeing it. We are affected by, when we see the sun, we feel energized. Prabhupada used to say that morning sun gives energy, afternoon sun takes it away. So everybody should try to get some morning sun. Go out in the sunshine at least for a few minutes. So it's the same with the spiritual master. Yes, the spiritual master lives eternally. He came to teach us that we're eternal. So there's no question that he's eternal. However, when we're in the sunshine of Prabhupada's presence, there is a difference. So Prabhupada wrote in one purport, I don't remember exactly where he said that, when the spiritual master leaves, the disciples should cry. Oh, that's in the story of the analogy of the queen compared to the jiva and the king. So when the king leaves, the queen should cry. So he said, Prabhupada says, similarly, when the spiritual master leaves, the disciples should cry.
Paranjan.
Paranjan pastime. However, he said, when the spiritual master is present, one serves his vapu, his form. And after the spiritual master leaves, then you should continue serving the vani. And in this way, you'll always be with the spiritual master. So that's how we reconcile. Yes, there is emotion involved between Avirbhav and Tirobhav. There is difference for us. Not for the spiritual master. He's always existing. He's always with Krishna. But when we have his personal, I know in my case, seeing Prabhupada for the very first time here in New York City in 1973, hearing him speak from Bhagavad Gita, you immediately realize this is not an ordinary person. Because there are so many other people speaking on Bhagavad Gita. Even then, in the 70s, there were people reading Bhagavad Gita and speaking. But Prabhupada said the difference is when a pure devotee presents Krishna consciousness, then he makes devotees. There were no devotees before Prabhupada came. There was nobody walking around chanting Hare Krishna, wearing tilak, offering to the deities like that. So that's the potency of a pure devotee. So you were saying, just this last point, you were saying, we're still trying how to preach to the Westerners. The effective method is the Prabhupada method. You have to be pure. And I remember anyway, I won't go into details, when they first started up this initiative of, trying to make ISKCON more relevant and this and that. So they invited me to one of the first meetings, and I made that point that, yes, we can come up with this formula, that formula, but the real formula is that you have to be pure. If you present Krishna consciousness purely and you're following purely, then it will be effective, no matter who you preach to. And Prabhupada said that wherever you go, and this is what devotees do, wherever they go, they try to make other devotees. And they're usually successful because of their purity, not because of some scheme or some, wonderful new way of doing. No, Prabhupada gave us, he said, just do what I did. Book distribution, prasadam distribution, Harinam, and hold festivals. Those are the 4 things. Now, depending on where you are, the festival may be different. If you're in Mexico, you're not going to try to put on a, American rock and roll band. You may have a mariachi band, So you use your intelligence that way based on time, place, and circumstance. But the formula is the same. Book distribution. As Prabhupada said, even if we didn't have any temples, go on preaching, live on the tree, but the books must go out. So book distribution, prasadam distribution, Harinam, festivals. That's it. Same formula wherever you go, and you'll be successful. Hare Krishna.
Haribo. Someone grab the mic. Thank you so much for sharing that, Prabhu. Beautiful.
Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishnastaya Budalaya Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namasaswaradevi Gaurvani Pracharne Nirvasesha Shanyavari Prasashodas Terne. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I wanted to share a story of Srila Prabhupada that you may not know, because you were talking about Srila Prabhupada coming to America on the Jaladuta. Well, it's 2 stories from the Jaladuta. So as Srila Prabhupada was coming off the Jaladuta, he was obviously standing out in the crowd, dressed the way he was, his age, his robes, shaved head. I mean, he stuck out like a sore thumb. And the people that saw him were very fortunate. And he had come off the Jaladuta with not very much money, maybe I think $20, $25 in his pocket, and his trunk of books, cooking equipment, and his clothes, and really that's it. And then, of course, the Srimad Bhagavatams. So as Srila Prabhupada was coming off the Jaladuta, There's two things I want to tell you. Just as he was getting off the Jaladuta, right near the Jaladuta was a U.S. Navy ship. And there was one guy that was in the U.S. Navy that happened to be at the very spot, at the very time, seeing Srila Prabhupada get off the boat. And he really took a good look at Srila Prabhupada, because it was very unusual to see someone like Srila Prabhupada getting off a ship into Boston, landing on the, American soil. And it stuck with him for a long time. And later, after Srila Prabhupada had established ISKCON in New York City, because this is where it all started and blossomed, and there was the Second Avenue Temple took off, this same man met devotees on Harinam distributing Prabhupada's books in the street. Somewhere in the mid to a little later 60s, he met the devotees. And he told the devotees that he had actually seen Srila Prabhupada get off the Jaladuta. It was just like a coincidence. So devotees gave them Prabhupada's books. Later, he read Prabhupada's books. Later, he came to the temple and then joined the temple and actually became a Prabhupada disciple. And I heard this story directly from my godbrother. This is how he was one of the first people to see Srila Prabhupada get off the Jaladuta. And later, after Prabhupada had established the Second Avenue Temple and devotees were preaching in the streets, he met the devotees and he joined, shaved up, and became a Prabhupada disciple. And that's a true story. I heard this from my godbrother. Second story, when Srila Prabhupada was getting off the Jaladuta, this is a very monumentous day, of course, and it's recorded in Satsarupa's biography of Srila Prabhupada coming to America. And in that biography, it explains everything Prabhupada getting off the Jaladuta, the exact day, the exact time, the exact month that it happened. Many, many years later, Satsarupa's biography of Srila Prabhupada was translated into the Russian language, which we have in Russia now. All of Satsarupa's biographies is translated in Russian. One Russian devotee actually had the set of Prabhupada's books and shared it with one of his relatives, who's pretty old, actually. I mean, maybe in the 90s, old, but he's livid, but he's quite old. And when he got the Prabhupada Lilamrita explaining how Prabhupada came to Boston, and he gave it to his relative was shocked, because what happened was, when Prabhupada got off the boat, it was the same time that this Russian devotee's older relative that's reading Prabhupada's Russian Lilamrita was in the Soviet army in a special place where they had nuclear weapons. And at the same time that Srila Prabhupada was getting off the boat and stepping onto American soil, this Russian devotee's relative was shocked, because he said, "Oh my God, at that same time when Prabhupada was getting off the boat and setting onto American soil, we were having a Cold War with the American government. And actually, we were preparing to make a first strike to hit America. A first strike means they would hit America first with nuclear weapons before America could bomb the Soviet Union, okay?" And when he was reading the exact time when Prabhupada, the day, the date, the time, the place, he said, "Oh my God, at that exact same time when Prabhupada stepped on American soil, we were ready to do a first strike to America with nuclear weapons. We got a phone call that called it off. And it got called off at the same exact time Prabhupada stepped on American soil, and that's a true story from Russian devotee. So Prabhupada saved the world even before he created ISKCON. Krishna stopped the nuclear war that was going to happen, the first strike. That's a true story, actually. Another little point. In 1977, I was in the West 55th Street Temple in the Brahmachari ashram with the Brahmacharis. I was a book distributor. And we were all waiting for Prabhupada to come because Srila Prabhupada had told us, we knew Prabhupada was very sick and we were very distressed about it. We were doing 24-hour kirtans for Prabhupada. Means the devotees, we would stay up all day and night. I was like on the night shift sometimes, and we would stay up and chant 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to Krishna to recover Prabhupada. And I was in the New York Temple on West 55th Street in Manhattan in 1977 when Prabhupada told us that he would come he would fly to England. He was sick in Vrindavan, but he would come to Bhaktivedanta Manor, and then his next stop would be New York Temple, West 55th Street. So we were all waiting for him. I mean, we were waiting and waiting and waiting. And in those days, the energy was so high that practically every day when we had Guru Puja, I'm not making this up, it would last 2 hours because after Prabhupada's Guru Puja, Prabhupada's disciples wouldn't stop chanting. It was intense, the kirtans we were having in the West 55th Street Temple, waiting for Prabhupada. And then finally we found out that he did go to England, he did go to the Bhaktivedanta Manor, and he decided to go back to India, to Vrindavan, to leave his body. We were very disappointed. But we kept the 24-hour kirtans going because Prabhupada disciples at that time, we were much younger, and we couldn't really imagine what would be a world without Prabhupada physically here. I mean, we knew it was happening, and we were realistic about it, but at the same time, we were hoping against hope. Krishna will give him at least another 10 or 20 years because we're not ready for this. You know, we're too young. And so even up to the last minute, all the Prabhupada disciples were continuously praying and doing 24-hour kirtans for Prabhupada to stay with us. And I remember when he did leave, I was in the Atlanta Temple serving the Bhaktivedanta Institute at that time. And we were just greeting the deities, actually. They have big deities that Prabhupada had actually come to see because he had heard about them. So he had come to the Atlanta for two reasons. Prabhupada came to the Atlanta Temple because the Atlanta Temple was one of the biggest book distributing temples in America at that time. They were doing tons of books at the airport and at the shopping malls. And I was also, of course, a book distributor at that time. And my God, we were greeting the deities about the same time we greet the deities now. And my godbrother came in the temple room crying and told us that Prabhupada had left. And we were just stunned by the fact, we knew it was coming, but it was 7 o'clock in the morning and another time in Vrindavan, but it all matched up. We just found out that Prabhupada left. But as I was standing in front of the Nitai deities, I was thinking, my God, Prabhupada's left us. But wait a minute, the temple's still here, the devotees are still here, the deities are still here, and Prabhupada's Vyasa is still here. So, I mean, in one sense, he's physically left us, but he's still here. So that's my realization, and I also want to put in a word to the New York devotees. I offer you my humble obeisances. Thank you so much for serving Srila Prabhupada. He's going to bless you so much for the service you're doing. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Prabhupada ki jai.
We have a very special offering from Siddhanta Prabhu that it's no longer on the screen. Now we are. And we'll be playing that. So you have to minimize the one screen. Thank you, John Nitai Prabhu, for a very enlivening and enlightening class. Is that the only way we can stream it? For now, okay. Do a full screen without the mixer. We want to thank Nata Barbaru and Vungsi for setting this up. Takes a little while to get all these things synchronized and coordinated. Yeah, you can go louder than that. Yeah. It's going down. Why is it going down? Huh? There's a sound coming, like ringing sound.
So in Bombay, it was a very sad day, one day, and that was on the 28th of September, 1977. I got a phone call from Giriraj Swami. That was at about 4:30 in the morning. And the most sad thing I heard from Giriraj Maharaj, he was crying on the phone, and he said, I want you to bring your big, in those days I had a big Dodge car. It was one of those huge cars and the Americans used to make, where even you could sleep at the back. And he said, Prabhupada wants to leave his body. I said, what? I never heard anybody say that somebody wants to leave his body. It sounded more like, he wanted to commit suicide or something. He said, what do you mean Prabhupada wants to leave his body? Where does he want to leave his body? He said he wants to go to Vrindavan, and he's leaving his body. He's going away. And we have to drop him at the station. But his body, because he hadn't eaten for nearly 6 months, he lived only on juice and charanamrit. So his body had depleted. There were hardly any muscles, and the bones and these veins were pressing, and it was very painful. So here was a person whom I had fought and I had argued with. He was like a lion. He was a very, very fine debater. He could defeat anyone on the matter of philosophy. And then suddenly, when I saw Prabhupada that morning, I saw that he was very, very thin. And it's like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he had withdrawn himself, like a tortoise withdraws himself. So this morning, it's 28th September 1977, Srila Prabhupada decided to leave. And so for the first time, I cleaned my car, because I didn't want Prabhupada to sleep in an unclean car. My wife arranged a nice silk bedding, and we had flowers and incenses. I drove to the temple, and there several things happened. Number one, when Prabhupada was brought down from his quarters, it was in like a basket, a big basket, and reminded me of stories like Moses or Karna. They were brought in baskets and left in the river or something. And I could see, like, there were devotees crying, and they were all devastated, is the only word I can say. Spiritually, they were very much feeling intensely separation, which was going to take place from Prabhupada. And I was supposed to drive, and I felt like a cruel, a real cruel guy, taking away Prabhupada away from the devotees. But that was my duty, I had to do that. So I was in the front, driving. Next to me was Brahmananda Swami, Mr. Big, and next to him him was Tamal Krishna Swami, who was Prabhupada's last secretary, and finally it was Giriraj Maharaj. Four of us, it was such a huge big car, 4 people could sit in the front. There were no bucket seats in those days. And there was, steering and the stick shift up in the steering wheel. And Prabhupada was resting in the back fully, and Upendra was his last servant. He was sitting down on the floor level of the car, and Prabhupada's luggage was behind. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj, like a school teacher, told me, drive very slowly. Don't drive fast, because in the Bombay roads there are potholes. Prabhupada will be very uncomfortable. I said, fine. So I just asked them, we are going to Bombay Central Station. Which train are we going to catch? Prabhupada's taking the Mathura Express. He was supposed to go to Vrindavan. So now, mind you, this was from 4:30 and till 8 o'clock. I had not had any water or anything, and then 9 o'clock, and then this was quite hot. Prabhupada was in the car. We were driving very slowly. Upendra from the back told me, Prabhupada wants you to drive faster. So I said, okay, if Prabhupada wants me to drive faster, I'll drive fast. I had been a rally driver when I was young, and I could drive real fast. I just picked up the speed. And in those days, these were huge, big cars with big guzzlers, gas guzzlers. You could just move. The moment I pressed the accelerator, Tamal Krishna Maharaj got very upset. I told you to go slow. What are you doing? I said, well, I was just told by Upendra at the back that Prabhupada wants me to drive faster. He said, no, go slow. So I slowed down again. True enough, within a minute, Upendra was again telling me, Prabhupada had said, go faster. Why aren't you going faster? Now, I was getting, I said, the real person I have to serve is Prabhupada. Let me drive faster. And I said to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, you sort this out with Upendra and allow me to drive. So we reached, what we thought was, we reached too early to the Bombay Central Station. So myself and Ram Tulsi, another devotee there, we went to the station master to get the wheelchair for Prabhupada to transport him from my car to the railway in his special cabin. So I just, by my usual style, I asked the station master, this Mathura Express is going at 11 o'clock. He said, didn't you read today's newspaper? It's 10:30. The timing has just got changed today. I looked at my watch and I said, there are 5 minutes left. The train's going to go in 5 minutes. Ram Tulsi and I ran with the wheelchair. And I told that station master, I'll pay you anything, but stop that train. Don't start it till I tell you. And he said, what? I've never had such a request. I said, there's a big team coming, and there's a very holy person. He's going to leave his body in Vrindavan, and he has to be on that train. He said, leave his body? What do you mean? I said, just run with me. And so we were running. I was quite young then. I'm now 57. But at that time I was 37, 20 years ago. Yes. So we put Prabhupada in there. Oh, I told Giriraj Maharaj, you guys goofed. It's, the train's going half an hour early today. He says, no, it's there in the timetable. I said, whatever is in the paper, that doesn't matter. The station master is going to blow his whistle and the train's going to go. So we better take Prabhupada with us. So we ran. Some of the devotees got the thing ready for Prabhupada in his special cabin, which was non-air conditioned. Should have been air-conditioned cabin, but for some reason they booked non-air conditioned. And then we took Prabhupada, and just a few minutes before the train was about to leave, he was comfortably sleeping in his compartment. Now, mind you, this was already nearly 10:30, and I was so thirsty. So I'd just gone to pick up a soda bottle from the stand at the railway. And Prabhupada's servant Upendra says, Prabhupada's calling you inside. So I just left that soda bottle and I went in the cabin, wondering why is Prabhupada calling me. And Prabhupada said, come closer. So I went very close to him. And he said, I want to thank you for driving me. And it was very touching because he was in so much pain. He was just about to give up his body. I had done nothing much except this. So right there in the train in front of everyone, I just offered my obeisances, caught Prabhupada's lotus feet. Kamal Krishna Maharaj and others, don't touch his feet. You know, I said, no, this is it. This is the last moment I'll ever get. I said, Prabhupada, I surrender to you. You are my spiritual master. And he put his hand in my hair and blessed me. He actually he got up with little pressure on his elbow and he was smiling sweetly. The train started. And some of the devotees said, look, the train started and you better jump off, otherwise the next station is, quite far away. Reluctantly, I jumped off the train, the moving train, and I kept watching the train till the last bogie had left. And I wasn't thirsty anymore and I couldn't care for the bottle. Then when I got into the car, with tears in my eyes, lo and behold, it was Prabhupada's garland on the steering wheel. He'd not forgotten.
There were a few conversations going on at that time that sort of all converged and expressed this thinking in Prabhupada about Gitanagari. In one conversation, it happened downstairs in his house in Vrindavan. He was talking about his impending death. And he said, I have no lamentation in the context of his impending demise, so to speak. I have no lamentation. These are words he would use, death, demise, I'm just paraphrasing him. And naturally he had no lamentation. Sojati, Nakanchati. But then he paused after saying, I have no lamentation about my impending death. He said, no, I have a lamentation. And one of us asked, not me, but one of us in the group, 3-4 people were there. You mean because you have not finished Srimad Bhagavatam? Srila Prabhupada said, no. That I have not established Varnashram. He said, 50% of my work is incomplete because I have not established Varnashram. Now these two statements I heard in my own ears in Vrindavan. Then this thought kept coming up, what to do about this 50% of his incompleted work. It was in his mind. So he said on the roof, on another conversation, that I want to establish Varnashram. And I believe I asked him, how will you do that? It may have been Tamal Krishna, it may have been someone else, but it represented what we were all thinking. So I had the impression that I asked him. That may not be hagiographically perfect, but I was certainly in that questioning mood as well. How will you do it? We asked him. And he said, I will go to Gitanagari, I will sit down, and I will teach you how to live off the land. As simple as that.
So when Prabhupada was leaving his body, and he wanted to go, to Gitanagari, and to help us in knowing how to do Varnashram Dharma, he stopped in England. By that time, I was in Eastern Europe, and we had heard that Prabhupada was coming. So we dropped everything and we came to, to the manor. So when Srila Prabhupada heard that I was around, he immediately told devotees to call for me. And by that time, Prabhupada, wasn't, practically stopped all bodily functions, and the devotees were carrying him, in the palanquin to have darshan. So when I came in, and it was, let's see, there was one devotee. There was Krishna, who's Kshetra, and a devotee. He left his body. I think his name was Dwarkadish. He used to work in Hungary and Poland and those places. So we were all together, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj was there. So Tamal had already written me many wonderful letters telling me how that I should continue sending these letters to Prabhupada as he's sick, is giving him new life. He was probably so happy to hear about the preaching. His books were going into so many different places. And so I was send reports about every 2 weeks. And I would be sending detailed reports. Who got the books, what was said, what was done. And Tamal would tell us how Prabhupada would hear this after taking lunch. And that after being garlanded and put chandan on him, and he would sit back and Tamal would tell me he would close his eyes and he would swoon, etc. So Tamal was eager for me to come in, for Prabhupada to see me. So an interesting thing happened. I came in, I sat before Prabhupada's desk. His voice was so weak. So he would call me, he would motion over to come closer. So then I came a little closer. And then he motioned for me to come around the desk. And then when I came around, Prabhupada started rubbing my head. And then he started crying, and then he embraced me. And then he said something which I didn't quite understand. But then what he said later, he says, your life is successful. And then I said, Prabhupada, we're only doing things because you are forcing us. Otherwise, how could we do anything? And then his voice became very strong, even though he was so weak. His body was so weak. He says, yes, that is the parampara. My guru has forced me, and I am forcing you. And that is how things are going. And it was so amazing. It was the most amazing experience I ever had with Srila Prabhupada. I mean, I couldn't appreciate it. And the next thing that happened shows you how I didn't appreciate it. Because it just came upon me, it was so fast. And Prabhupada was so weak, and at the same time, he was so strong and giving so much love. So the next day, this was the very last time I saw Prabhupada. Next day, Tamal wanted me to experience what Prabhupada's mood was when he would read these reports. So he wanted me to physically come in and to read a report to Srila Prabhupada. He would write me these letters saying, when Prabhupada says, your work, he would give comments after. Tamal would read to him, and then Prabhupada would give some comments, and then Tamal would send me the comments. And they're some of the most amazing letters I've seen. And not because they're my letters, but they're some of the most amazing letters. So Tamal wanted me to experience what he was experiencing from Prabhupada. Like Sajananda once told me, Sadananda. He had told me how once he was in the room when Prabhupada got a letter when I was in the communist countries. And Prabhupada didn't start speaking afterwards. He said, Prabhupada said, so you do not know the language. You do not know his language. He does not know their language. But the books are going out. He is a black man, different race, and the books are going. He says, and the books are going. And he says, and Prabhupada went into like a trance. He says, the books are going. And he says, Prabhupada just went out. And so these are the kind of things that were going on. But Tamal wanted me to experience something of what they were experiencing when Prabhupada would read the letters. So now, the day before, Prabhupada has embraced me and told me my life was successful. And 4 to 5 of the devotees were in the room. So now I'm going around kind of puffed up, Prabhupada has embraced me, Everybody was saying, people know me then as Ganesham. So everyone was saying, those who knew that, Ganesham was embraced by Prabhupada, this and that. So I was feeling cocky, Prabhupada embraced me. So the next day I came in reading my report. And the report, I think, was from activities in Eastern Europe. And I started reading about the events of how the books had gotten out, this professor had taken, this library had accepted, this museum had accepted. And Prabhupada at one point stopped me. And he said, "It is by Krishna's mercy." Very piercing. He was chastising me that I was accepting, one, that I deserved his darshan, that I was doing. I was feeling proud of what I had received. And he told me some other things in that same session about the communists, if they don't take the Krishna consciousness, they will have no grain, there will be many problems. But this one, he tuned into me and said like this. It was the very last words that Prabhupada had ever said to me, the very last time I saw him. And it just lived with me to realize that we must always remind ourselves that anything that we're able to do, it is by the mercy of Guru and the mercy of Krishna. So here, the best time I had with Prabhupada, most amazing experience was the day before, and the most devastating experience was the last one of this serious chastisement.
Well, Srila Prabhupada was, to our apparent limited vision, his health was deteriorating, and he requested that I come to India, to Vrindavan, to see him. So I just got married, and my wife was pregnant with my first son. So I couldn't leave, and we were living in a very remote part of Hawaii. So I couldn't leave at that particular moment. But I promised that as soon as my wife had her baby, then I would come. So time passed after my son arrived, and Shirikirti came over to Maui from Oahu, and we flew off to India together. So at that time, I wasn't living at a temple, so I let my hair grow a little bit longer than I should have. And when we arrived in Delhi, I thought, well, I can't go to see Prabhupada like that, so we shaved up. And I had this big long sika. And Srila Prabhupada, when I walked in the room, it was a very sober mood, dark, and everything was, subdued, and people were kind of morose, not making too much sound and everything. So I walked into Srila Prabhupada's room, and they said, "Oh, Srila Prabhupada, Madhavisa has arrived." So Prabhupada sat up in his bed, and I paid my obeisances, and Prabhupada, first thing he said, "Whoa, look at Madhavisa. He is maintaining such a nice sika." And he chuckled like that, knowing that, I hadn't maintained such a nice sika. I just had shaved up in Delhi train station. And the second thing he said, "Where is your wife?" I had left Srila Prabhupada, I was a sannyasi, and then I had left and got married and everything like that. So that's not particularly the way you should do it. But Srila Prabhupada, he just shrugged that off. It was like immaterial to him. He wanted to know where my wife was. Not that, why have you got married? Why have you done this? He wanted to know, where is she? And he was fully aware that I was married and I had a child and everything like that, and he wanted to see her. And I said, "Well, Srila Prabhupada, she just had her first baby and she really doesn't want to travel." And she said, "That's right, she shouldn't travel. But she is feeling okay?" And I said, "Yes, she's feeling good." And you had a son?" And I said, "Yes, Prabhupada, I had a son." And I said, and I named him Abhay Charan. "Is that all right?" He said, "Yes." He said, "That is okay. You've named him after your spiritual master." And then he went on to explain the famous purport that's in the Srimad Bhagavatam about the elephant and the crocodile. That the elephant is very mighty and very strong. But when he enters into the water, he becomes victimized by the crocodile because he's not in his proper atmosphere. If he's on the dry land, he can annihilate, he can crush the crocodile. But because he's in the water, he's at the mercy of the crocodile. So he said, similarly, we may be situated in the wrong atmosphere for executing Krishna consciousness. We must put ourselves in the right atmosphere, and then we can execute our Krishna consciousness and with all strength and vigor. So he said, it doesn't make any difference. You are a sannyasi, now you're a householder. That doesn't make any difference. The proper thing is just to go on with your Krishna consciousness. Execute it. If you can't execute it, if you're becoming weak by artificially embracing a sannyas order, and you must take another order to become strong again, that is all right. But the most important thing is don't leave the association of the devotees and continue on with your Krishna consciousness. And it made me feel so good.
When Prabhupada asked me about the Bhagavatam, called me, he was getting a massage, and called me up and asked me, said, so in my absence, you can complete the Srimad Bhagavatam. I said, yes, Prabhupada, I try to do that. Yes. I said, okay. Good. And I said, and if I have questions, I could ask Sridhar Maharaj. He said, yes. He said, he is the man. So you can ask questions. Yes, that's okay. That's good. And I wasn't actually around. I mean, I was right there, but I wasn't around Prabhupada too much in the final weeks, actually, because for the final part of the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada asked me to do the translation. So I was actually translating the verses for the final volume, and that took all my time. Because what I would do is I'd do the transliteration, I'd read all the commentaries, I'd translate the verse and do the synonyms, and then I would bring it down to him and read it to him. And then we'd hold the microphone to his lips and he would dictate the purport for that last volume. So that kept me pretty much occupied because I would have to have everything ready to read, and it would take a lot to make sure that it was right. So I had to go down and read it, and I'd go right back up to the room and work on the next verses, because if he could, anytime Prabhupada was ready to do more, I had to be ready. I mean, there was no saying, well, I'm not ready. You know, that was it. That's Bhagavatam that people wouldn't have. So for the last weeks, that's basically what I was doing. So I was right there. I was right in the next, in the compound, but I was always translating, you know, as fast as I could.
So I was reading one letter from our godbrother Siddha Swarup. Now at that time, historically, Siddha Swarup had been a bit of a iconoclast in ISKCON. He was apart from the most of his godbrothers. He had his own unique style and perspective on things. And in that exact time, he had really left again. He had come in and then left again and gone back to his own establishment in Hawaii. But of course, he was a devotee of Prabhupada still. So he had written a get well card to Prabhupada, and I was reading it. Prabhupada was lying down, I was standing up, and the get well card said, Dear Srila Prabhupada, he said a variety of things. I'm praying for your health and this and that. But he came to one particular line where he said, I am a resident of Hawaii, and I hope that if you think of Hawaii sometime, you may also think of me. And I suddenly heard Prabhupada choke up, and he burst out. I was looking at the card, and I looked up at Prabhupada's face, and in that span of time, the tears had already come down, halfway down his cheeks. So I don't know if they sprayed out or what, or if they were already dripping, but they were clearly down at the level of his nose, the bottom of his nose. And he choked up and he said, I am always thinking of you. I can never forget. And this was indicative of the way he was at that time. Any nice thought could bring him to tears, to deep appreciation.
Someone brought ice cream from New Vrindavan to Prabhupada in Vrindavan, final days. Prabhupada took it right on a teaspoon and ate ice cream from New Vrindavan. They had dry ice that kept it cold. And they brought him a ring they had made. As soon as we showed Prabhupada the ring, he said, "So, where is the bride?" He said, "Where is the bride?"
Prabhupada's position, after you were with Prabhupada for a while, you got used to Prabhupada's physical condition that was so devastating when you first saw. So we would be around Prabhupada's bed, and then new devotees would come in, and as they first saw Srila Prabhupada, they'd start crying, and it would be so pathetic that we'd all start crying. See these devotees crying when they first saw Srila Prabhupada. So we'd all started crying. And then Prabhupada said, at one point he says, "Why are you all crying?" So he said, "Srila Prabhupada, we're crying because you're so sick and we are afraid that you may leave." And Prabhupada said, "I will never leave you." He said, "I live forever in my books. I will never leave you. I will live forever within my books, so there's no reason to cry." He said, "Old people die, that is natural." He said, "When a young person dies, that's some mistake, because young person should live to their old. When they're old, they should die. And that's, for me, it's natural. It's a natural thing, so don't cry." So then one devotee said, "But Srila Prabhupada, we're crying because we can't be without you. And when you leave, we won't know how to communicate with you." And Prabhupada said, "Oh, I will communicate with you through your heart." He said, "I will come to you in your dreams as Chaitaguru. I will communicate with you through dreams," Prabhupada said, as Chaitaguru. I also found that a little controversial because I thought my godbrothers wouldn't have approved, but Prabhupada had said it. Prabhupada said it right there, that he would communicate with us through dreams. So Prabhupada wanted to go to Govardhan. So he said, "I want to go to Govardhan," and everyone's saying, "Srila Prabhupada, we don't think this is a good idea, And Prabhupada said, in this room, it's like being killed by Ravana." He said, Marichi, he said, he was given the choice to be, if he didn't become a deer and go and tempt Ram away from Sita, Ravana would kill him. And if he became a deer, Ram would kill him. So he told Ravana, better to be killed by Ram. The brother said, better to be killed by Ram, better to go to Govardhan. If I stay in this room, it's like being killed by Ravana. But Prabhupada, you can't go. The doctor said, Prabhupada, you won't even make it to the gate. If we carry you, you won't even make it to the gate. So there was a big discussion right around Prabhupada's bed, and Prabhupada said, you have to do this outside. I cannot, it's too exhausting to hear this going on. It went on for maybe 15 minutes, discussion right in front of Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, go outside. So they went into Prabhupada's garden, and they had a big, big discussion. I was just talking to Bhartraj about this. Went on and on and on. It seemed, I only remember, one person on Prabhupada's side and everybody against Prabhupada, and I was on the side against. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj seemed to be the one who was on the side not to take Prabhupada to Govardhan, and Hamsaduta was the only one, and Lokanath, who went to get the cart, were on Prabhupada's side to take him to Govardhan. So this went on and on and on until the cart came to the Krishna Balaram gate. Then we hear, the cart's here. Now it's time to move Prabhupada from the bed to the cart. And it's night. It's getting dusk. Not only are we going to put Prabhupada on the cart, which is probably going to kill him, but it's going to be at night. It'd even be worse, So Prabhupada would want to go. No one would see. It would be at night. He would go and he would leave his body somewhere, and this is what we feared. So we all went in, and myself included. We all went around Srila Prabhupada's bed and we said, Srila Prabhupada, please don't make us put you on this cart. And Prabhupada said, he didn't say anything. And then we begged him, and we were almost crying. We were crying. And then Prabhupada said, it worries you so much. I don't need to go. And it's just like the whole anxiety level just went from a 50,000 to back to zero, And then everyone it was just like, oh, now we can relax. And then people started moving out of Prabhupada's room, And it seemed like most of the people were out of the room. There weren't many people in the room. But I was still there, and I don't think there were many other people in the room. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj, I'll tell you this. I worked with him after Srila Prabhupada left for 7 years. You know, Siddhanta, how much I worked with him, how close I was with him. And why I worked with him was because I was so impressed at the excellent service that he gave Srila Prabhupada. If you had everyone, even people who didn't like Tamal Krishna Maharaj, they saw how he served Prabhupada, and we were impressed that no one could have served him like this. But because Goswami Maharaj was also very intimate to Prabhupada, he got very fried at this situation. And he went up to Prabhupada and he said, Prabhupada, we can't understand why you do this. Why you insist for us to take you to Govardhan. We get so upset, we so worked up, and we just get this cart and we bring it over here, and then we're so worried, we put you on the cart, you're going to die, we get flipped out, and we become more protective of you, even more than before, and we just said, I just can't take it, Prabhupada. Why you do this? And he almost screamed at Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada said, my duty. Goswami said, what? It's my duty to make you love me more. And Goswami said, oh, and walked away. And I just remember Prabhupada saying that, to make you love me more. And whatever love I had for Prabhupada just multiplied like 1,000 times. He probably just made you love him so much. If you were with Prabhupada, whatever love you had for Prabhupada, he just increased it, and you just become more and more loving with him. His duty, he said, was to make us love him more. What wonderful duty. We already love Prabhupada, but he's getting us to love him more.
This is Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada departed from Vrindavan on November 14th, 1977. This was approximately November 8th or November 10th. So I came to Vrindavan. I was in the Hyderabad farm, which was very important to Srila Prabhupada, so I was staying there. But I heard that Srila Prabhupada was not feeling well and that it was a chance he might leave the world, so I went to see him. And came there, and I tried to be as inconspicuous as possible, not to disrupt the mood. The room was packed with devotees. Everyone was very quiet. I could see Prabhupada's condition, and I was told about it. Really hadn't eaten for almost 6 months. It's a very important thing to understand Prabhupada's condition. He was lying in bed, emaciated, weighing maybe 70 pounds, if that much, drinking 1 spoon, 2 spoons of water, maybe eating a little bit. And as I was sitting there in the back, just listening to what was going on, and there was some kirtan. Kirtananda had come in and was offering Srila Prabhupada some strawberries, probably from New Vrindavan. So Srila Prabhupada asked, when Kirtananda offered him the strawberries, he says, what is the value of strawberries? And everyone was silent. No one knew what to say. So then several devotees kept on poking me. I'm kind of known as the walking encyclopedia. I like to study things. So they kept on poking me to say something. I didn't want to intrude on Prabhupada. I was remaining quiet. But I spoke. I said, Srila Prabhupada, the value of strawberries is that they're very high in fructose, and that provides immediate energy. The new Prabhupada wasn't so much into vitamins. He talked about the value. Prabhupada was very pragmatic. Even lying on his departure bed, not eating, he's concerned what would be the value of eating it. Pragmatic person. So the devotee next to him says, Tejas says that it, and he repeated. And Prabhupada said, oh, Tejas is here. And Prabhupada said, how is the Hyderabad farm? So he's so cognizant, always, and even this state. And so I gave him a report that we're growing corn, rice, mung beans, like that. And as soon as I said corn, Prabhupada said, oh. He says, corn. You can grind the corn, and then there are big pieces, which you can boil with water, cook with water, like rice, it's called pot. And the other, the fine powder, you make that together like a roti, and you cook that on the pan, the cooking pan. He says, and the villagers, they very much like this. So here he was, from a physical point of view, starving. And what was he thinking? He was just thinking how we could make this corn in the most delicious way to make the villagers happy when they take prasad. This is a person of unlimited compassion.
I was amazed at Srila Prabhupada's being able to transcend his bodily condition. For example, I was there when, right near the end, and the Kaviraj, who they had flown up from Calcutta, one of the best. Prabhupada had a dream about this Kaviraj. And he was a really excellent Kaviraj. You could see he was dhira, he was a sober practitioner, very Brahminical like that, and very, very reverential to Prabhupada. And he was from the Sri Sampradaya, big white and red tilak. And one day he told, I got this second hand from perhaps Harisori, but he says, I had doubt that your Guru Maharaj was actually a Paramahams saint. But he said, I have assisted, thousands of people dying. And usually in this condition, when there's no more muscle and fat to cushion the nerves from being pressed against the bone, he said, people are in such agony that I have to administer morphine. And he says, your Guru Maharaj never manifests the slightest expression of pain.
This was in Vrindavan, the end of October, early November 1977. Prabhupada was preparing to leave. And I was sitting on the side of his bed, massaging his arms. Other devotees were massaging his head and feet. And at one point, his body started going through some contortions that seemed like he was in great pain. So I asked Prabhupada, are you in pain, Prabhupada? If he answered yes, then I would try to do something. He looked at me like, what kind of a question is that? He said, no. So Prabhupada was not affected.
In the final days, which was the most poignant, and we were there in Vrindavan and having like the vigil, the kirtan, and taking turns chanting softly with the little cymbals, and at a certain point I got sick. I got this fever. I don't know what it was. I just one day just walked back to my room and just collapsed right in my room, and just fever And so I was sick for a few days. And anyway, it took me about a week or so to recover. And then I was able to, I got better, then I was able to, again, go and see Prabhupada. So when I came there, of course, Prabhupada was just lying on his bed, and he was conversing with his servants, and sometimes he would ask who was having the kirtan. And so that particular day, he asked, and they said, they mentioned my name, and then Prabhupada said, "Oh, Brahmananda," and then he made me call me, and then I came forward, and so he said, you were ill, you were not feeling well. I mean, here's Prabhupada, just completely shriveled. I mean, Prabhupada was not maybe feeling, when Prabhupada was concerned, I'm not feeling well. I had just a little fever. And here's Prabhupada on his departure bed, and he said, "Oh, you were not." He with such concern and really with love, and I just was totally affected by that. How Prabhupada could be thinking that I wasn't feeling well. So I think this is the thing that affected me most, how much Prabhupada loved us. But the thing is, we're not very lovable. And we all have defects and so on. But why did Prabhupada love us? And he loved us because he saw us as servants of Krishna. And he also even said that we were sent by his Guru Maharaj to help in his mission. But anyway, Prabhupada saw us as Krishna's servants, and his mission was to spread Krishna consciousness. So whatever we could do to assist and do something in this cause of Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada very much appreciated.
I was also there when Prabhupada disappeared, left this world, and I'm sure you've probably heard plenty of stories from the devotees that were there. My own feeling at the time, it was just such a feeling of helplessness and desperation, because, in fact, it was like that a lot during the last couple of months, because it just felt like it was inevitable, but you couldn't stand the thought that he wasn't going to be with us. And on that last day, everyone was chanting. At first there was a kind of a back and forth, and then everybody began chanting together in the last moments. And again, it's not something you could empirically establish, but it felt like there were many more people in that room than were actually there. It felt like there was a heavenly chorus. It felt like there must be so many other personalities from other places who were present. And there was this tremendous feeling. I'm not trying to make light of it. It was like a Technicolor finish. Like when you have this spectacular ending to a movie or something. It was like this glorious chanting was going on, and Prabhupada was, his last breath was Hare Krishna, uttering the syllables Hare Krishna, and you could almost feel the ascent. It was like you sensed, okay, he's ascending now. He's with Krishna, and the emotions were so intense in the room, and some devotees became completely hysterical, crying. One devotee threw himself on the floor and just weeping. He couldn't control himself. Other people were completely stricken or stoic, or there were so many different kinds of reactions. But it was a very intense moment. But
there was nothing inauspicious about it. It was completely auspicious. As sometimes they describe the sentiments of the gopis as being simultaneous nectar and poison. It was kind of like that. It was ecstatic because you knew that Prabhupada had perfectly executed the mission of human life and was back to Godhead. And but for us, it was loss, irretrievable and irreplaceable loss. So it was a very difficult period.
After Prabhupada had left, devotees were collecting memories of Srila Prabhupada, and no one had gone to see his godbrother, Dr. O.B.L. Kapoor. So I decided to go to see Dr. Kapoor when I was in Vrindavan one time and ask him about his memories of Srila Prabhupada. And he gave me a very beautiful story. And he was 13 years younger than Prabhupada, but he used to come all the time to the pharmacy and to ask questions, discuss Krishna Katha like that, and they became really close. So one day when he came, Prabhupada handed him a vial. Said, here, take this vial, this tonic. This would be very good for your health. So Dr. Kapoor said, yes, I will take this, thank you very much. But why you don't give me the tonic that you're taking? So Prabhupada said, well, what tonic is that? He said, you know, the tonic of Krishna Prem. Prabhupada laughed. He said, well, I don't have that tonic, but I do know the formula. And Dr. Kapoor said, well, if it's not a secret, perhaps you can share it with me. I said, yes, I can share it with you. It is not a secret. The formula is Trinada pi sunichena taroriva sahishnana amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari, and I shall spread it the whole world over. So Trinada pi sunichena, more humble than the grass. Taroriva sahishnana, more tolerant than the tree. Amanina manadena, not desiring any respect for myself, but desiring to give all respect to others. Kirtaniya sadahari, in such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. So at the time, Dr. Kapoor thought he was just making a casual pronouncement. But he told me, now that I look back over the years, I realized that even at that time, he had a plan like that. He was thinking like that. I shall spread it the whole world over. So I was thinking how Prabhupada said this is the formula to get Krishna Prem. And Srila Prabhupada was the embodiment of that verse. So I want to give some of Srila Prabhupada's pastimes to show how he embodied that verse. So, Trinadapi Sinechena, more humble than the grass. This is a pastime that Srila Prabhupada performed in New York in July 1972. It was just around it was actually the July 4th holiday weekend. And devotees had come from all over the East Coast, from far south as Miami, as far north as Montreal and Toronto, as far west as Chicago and St. Louis. And there were thousands of devotees in the New York temple. And then when Prabhupada was to leave, so many devotees drove him to the airport. And they went with him into the departure lounge. You just see him to the last second. So the departure lounge was filled with devotees. Now, the airport officials had a problem because there was no room for the passengers who were booked on the plane to come into the departure lounge. So one of the officials looked around and spotted Rabindra Sarup, who was kind of a tall person, and explained the situation to him and asked him if he could ask your people to kindly leave so that persons who are on the plane can come in to the departure lounge and to board their flight. So he said, okay. You'd understood the situation and went and spoke to a couple of devotees, but no one was having any of that. I'm not leaving, no way. Then he realized that he's not going to get anywhere. Now, Rupanuga had just taken sannyas in May of that year, so he was a new sannyasi and he was a GBC. So Rabindra approached Rupanuga and explained the situation to Rupanuga and asked him if he could take care of it. So Rupanuga immediately, okay, done. So he got up one of the chairs and he said, attention all devotees. We now have to leave the departure lounge to make room for the incoming passengers. So all devotees, please get up and leave the departure lounge. No one did anything. Everyone just sat there and looked at him, except for one person. Srila Prabhupada. He got up and started to walk out. And Rupanuga said, no, not you, Srila Prabhupada. He was so humble. When he heard that devotees should get up and leave, he got up to leave. And no one else did. So this is the symptom of humility, more humble than the grass. He was the only humble Vaishnava in that assembly. Taroriva Sihishnuda, more tolerant than the tree. This pastime took place in 1975 when Prabhupada was going for the first time to South Africa after he had been in Kenya. And he was flying on the plane, and on that plane was the South African football team who had just played in Kenya. So they were a rowdy bunch, and they'd won the match, and they were kind of, happy and upbeat. So after the plane took off, stewardesses came around, they were serving drinks, and these guys were taking their drinks and getting a little high and a little rowdy, lighting up cigarettes. Now, it's a non-smoking cabin that they were in. So Pushta Krishna, who was Prabhupada's secretary, was sitting next to Prabhupada, Pushta Krishna Maharaj at that time. He got a little disturbed. This is not very nice. Why Prabhupada should be subjected to this? So he pressed the call button to call for the stewardess. And she came and he explained very nicely, this is the non-smoking area, and could you please ask them to extinguish their cigarettes? So she agreed. She asked these football players to extinguish their cigarettes, which they did do. Then she left. But after a few minutes, they lit up again because they were really drunk. So now, Mr. Krishna could see that he wasn't going to get anywhere with the stewardess. So he decided he was going to take matters into his own hands. So he got up and he was going to get heavy with these guys. Srila Prabhupada said, oh, where you were going? He said, well, they're smoking, Srila Prabhupada. Sit down. And then Srila Prabhupada looked him right in the eye and said, what is the difference between us and them if we cannot tolerate? So Prabhupada tolerated the cigarette smoke and the rowdiness and everything. He was undisturbed. And he said, what is the difference between us and them if we cannot tolerate? So the pure devotee, the Vaishnava, he exemplifies this. Tarori Vasahishnuda, more tolerant than the tree. And then Amanina Manadena, not desiring any respect for himself or any honor, but desiring to give all respect and honor to others. So pastime, this was just end of 1975 and 76. I think it was January 76. I had arrived in Bombay, December 75. And at that time, the Bombay temple was just a hole in the ground with the foundation. And Prabhupada's rooms at that time was at the back of the property, which are now the BBT building. So Prabhupada had come early January 76, I believe, sometime in January. And he wanted to really get this project moving. So the next morning after breakfast prasadam, he had a big meeting in his rooms with all the people who were involved in doing this project, and the sannyasi, the GBC temple president, all the people, everybody. So they're in the room having this big important meeting. Then up the stairs comes the cleaning lady, a Bungi lady from the Bungi colony, not far from the temple. And she has her little balti, the wooden bucket, and her daru, the straw broom, because she comes up every day and cleans the rooms. So she comes up to the top of the landing, and the door is slightly ajar. So she looks through and she sees Prabhupada there speaking, and all the devotees and the architects and the contractors and everything. So she can't go in. But she can't not do her service. She can't go down and forget about it because that 1 rupee feeds her children. She needs it, so she doesn't know what to do. So she's just standing there. Meanwhile, Prabhupada's speaking, and as he turns his head to the right, he sees through the door that's ajar, he sees the cleaning lady standing there. So immediately he stops the discussion. He says, now we have to stop. The cleaning lady has come. When it's her time to clean, then she's the authority here. Everyone has their area of authority. And when it's her time to clean, she's the authority. So we have to get up and leave. So they got up and leave. So the Jagat Guru recognized the authority of that cleaning lady. Amanina Amanadena, giving all respect to others and not desiring any for himself. In this way, Kirtaniya Sadahari, one is able to chant the holy name of the Lord constantly, which we always saw. Srila Prabhupada always chanting the holy name of the Lord constantly. So here we see that Prabhupada was the embodiment, the personification of that verse, which he said many years back. He had explained to his godbrother that this was the formula to get Krishna prema, and he would spread it the whole world over, and he was the embodiment of that.
Krishna